Hello everyone, welcome to the Fans POV. I'm Chrissy Waller here, and with us at Zenkaikon is Greggo, also known as Greggo, the game show host.
Hello!
Hello, and thank you for the interview.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me.
I say, like you said, you just got off of a show, so I'm sure it turned out well?
Yes, it did. We finished on a good note. We just finished Pressure Luck, which is something I've done at Zenkaikon every year, the 4 years that I've come to the show. And it was good games. They've all been really good games this weekend, but unprecedentedly good in some circumstances. Wait till you see them.
Well, for those who don't know, he does do game shows, like the game shows at the conventions to make them more nerd-friendly themed.
Stuff for the attendees to do so they're not just all hanging out in the hallway just sitting with their phones. And they're sitting in my audience with their phones now, so at least we got them into a room.
Yeah, that's always good. Let's get them out of the hallways. Alright, well first I got a couple of nice icebreaker questions, nothing too, but so the people can get to know you.
Okay.
Alright, first one, lemonade or iced tea?
Okay, so...
Oh, I went deep already.
I'm from the South. We don't call it iced tea.
Oh, okay.
We call it sweet tea.
Sweet tea, I apologize.
It's fine. So, because there is no such thing as unsweet tea. It's all sweet tea, but that's the answer.
Okay, sweet tea, alright. Pepperoni or sausage on pizza?
Yes.
I agree with that. I 100% agree with that. Alright.
All the meats.
Alright, well I have a feeling I know the answer to this one already, because by some hints you gave. Fried or barbecue chicken?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. There we go. Now you know.
I've lived in Memphis. I've lived in Kansas City, so I have to at least acknowledge that barbecue is delicious. So.
Okay. I agree with that. But fries can be good.
Yeah.
We've been to Nashville, and I have to say you have not had real fried chicken till you've been to the South, I think. All right. Well, I guess one of the bigger questions is how did you get started with the game shows?
All right, so in 1999, which I'm sure is before a lot of your viewers were born, I did my first show after having gone to a convention at the same show as Icebreakers in Dallas. I went there the year before and sat in on a Jeopardy and was like, yeah, I don't know about this. So I've been hosting game shows since I was 5. Like I was drawing Family Feud boards on the chalkboard in preschool. And yeah, I see you're nodding your head over there. Yeah, I did. And so after sitting in on this Jeopardy, I was like, you know what? I bet I could probably do something that's a little more involved and entertaining than this. So I talked with the convention chair, Mary Hazelwood at the time, Mary Davis now, and was like, hey, I want to do the match game. And she was like, ooh, we love the match game. That was one of our favorite game shows growing up. And match game, in case you kids are unaware, is basically Cards Against Humanity, the 70s version.
Yep.
So
they always had an interesting group.
Yeah. So we did that the next year, and it went really well. And so they kept bringing me back. Fortunately, at the same time, my dad at the time was an employee of Delta Airlines. So it came in handy. It means I could fly anywhere I wanted to go. So when a con saw my show and were like, hey, that's cool, I'm like, well, you want it? Because I can get to your con for nothing, just let me in. And they were like, yeah, sure. So I started building more conventions. And then eventually it got to the point where I was doing about 10 shows a year, which then I kind of burned out a little bit because I had a day job. Then I started back up again. And was living with a couple of con chairs who asked me why I never charged for doing game shows. And I said, well, I didn't think you could. And they said, well, we would pay. I'm like, oh, okay. We figured out a fair price, and so all of a sudden now I'm getting 20 shows a year. Hey, look, you're professional now. And now, yeah, I average around 25, 30 shows a year.
Wow.
All over the world now. I've done France now too.
Ooh, that's cool.
To do Japan Expo, and then there's Southern Japan Expo. So that's cool.
That's a lot of traveling.
Yes.
That's gotta be cool.
You would think.
Okay, I'll leave it at that.
Jet lag is a thing.
Well, to go in with the whole thing, did you really expect it to get this popular?
No, honestly. And two things to thank for that. Number one, the American convention mentality of, this wasn't the best, I can do better. Where now we have 200 cons a year thanks to that, which means there's usually one that has a spot available, so I can do that. And then the voice actors and the musicians and the DJs leading the way with making sure that if they're going to be taken away from their lifestyle for a long time, that they should see a little bit of compensation for that, to open the door for me to actually be able to turn this into the one person in the world who has the career that I do.
Since you're saying they have all these other things, I've seen some of the shows you've done with the guests at the con, and also I'm sure you've done it with the audience members. Have you ever had a particular group of contestants that you're like, wow, this was a great group I had, they had the brains to come up with some interesting stuff?
Most of my shows don't. I mean, I do have a few shows that are the brain teaser games, but the majority of the games that I do are more audience friendly, lots of interaction. Because you can't. Nobody's interested in seeing what 3 people know on, unless they can do that at home. They can watch Jeopardy at home. So you have to make it more of an event. You have to really engage your audience with the shows. Sometimes it takes the form of games I play with the audience. Sometimes it's just like I have one that's a flat-out live survey game show where the audience is playing along with the contestants and trying to sway the contestant one way or another as to what the right answer is and so forth. But to answer your question, any of the games that I do that really, like when I just did The Price is Right at Icebreakers a couple of weekends ago, and we had some really great contestants, but we had a really great audience. We were playing the game where you have to pick the numbers 0 through 9, and they would appear somewhere in the price, and you had to light up it's called any number, you had to light up all the prices, the numbers of the price of the good prize to win that. The audience shook the room. They were so loud, yelling out the numbers that the contestant could pick. I mean, you could feel it in the room. And it was standing room only in there too. So, but yeah, any game where you walk away going, holy cow, I am shaking because of how loud this room has been for the last hour. But yeah, any show like that. We had something like that during Password yesterday, with Doug Walker as the guest giving the clues. So the password was water, and Doug Walker, the nostalgia critic, being who he is, immediately did the Captain Planet. Wind was his clue for water, which the audience loved it. Contestant didn't pick up on it, but then after the puzzle got solved, guess what the very first password was for the next puzzle? Wind. Was wind. And so again, the audience just completely lost it. So but yeah, anytime you have moments like that, it's good. And I had a lot of them at this convention. So
well, you said you go to so many conventions a year. Is there a particular con that you always look forward to definitely going back to?
Any con that knows how to treat their attendees and their guests and everyone, and Zenkaikon is definitely on that list. It's right near the top, if not at the top, as far as how they treat us. So, and the attendees are so nice, staff's great. Any show like that, like I said, this Zenkaikon is definitely very high, if not at the top of that list. So, in a 19-way tie.
Is out of all the shows that the different shows that you do, is there a particular game that just happens to be your favorite? Not necessarily how it plays out with the cons, but just in general.
In general, basically anything that involves just like the shows that I enjoyed growing up as a kid. The fact that I can do them in a way where people can enjoy the things that I enjoyed growing up. So a lot of your word stuff. Anything that lets me, like I have a game show that's all puns, and I'm notorious for dad jokes. So this game show is nothing but dad jokes for an hour. Writing that material was just really fun. It's a Canadian game show called Definition. Imagine Wheel of Fortune with no wheel and no fortune, but every puzzle is a pun.
Okay.
So let's see if I can come up with one real quick that I did. Okay, so a battle between two Magikarps. Battle between two Magikarps. They settle it in Splash. That's the show. Okay. So those are a lot of fun. Anytime I can do stuff with the audience, if the audience gets it, and you can tell when they're reacting to everything. Any show like that. Password's great for that, as was proven yesterday. Some of the fan favorites, and then some of the original stuff that I've done, like Pokemon Game Show, which is very popular for obvious reasons. Thank you, Nintendo, for letting me do it. I appreciate it. But anything that just at the end of the day I go, I made this, and people really had a good time. So
That's good.
but yeah, my all-time favorite game shows Password and Pyramid. So those, when I do those, are good.
That's pretty cool. Like I grew up on some of those too, and I always enjoyed them. They were always fun. I guess if you weren't doing all these game shows and doing with the cons, is there anything particular that you think you would have been doing instead?
Yeah. I'd still be working at Walmart. I wouldn't have the constant urge to go, you know, I could be doing this instead. I'm gonna go do this. But yeah, I'd probably still be working at Walmart. So, but yeah, which, you know, I made more there. But you know, there's something to be said about doing what you do best and making a meager but honest living off of it. So there you are.
Did you have any?
Yeah. Who's your favorite game show host and why?
My favorite game show host is good old Uncle Bill, Bill Cullen, from Blockbusters, 3 on That.
He did Password, right?
He did know that he was a celebrity on Password.
Yeah.
Quite a bit.
Oh, okay. I think
he was the
somebody
original
else.
host of The Price is Right back in the '60s.
Yeah.
So before Bob Barker relaunched the show. But the thing about old Uncle Bill, which is something that I try to emulate, is the shows are not about the host. It's all about the contestants. And the thing that Bill was always the best at is, if you were playing a game that Bill was hosting, Bill was basically just like the guy in the room going, okay, so we're going to do this, and let the contestants be the stars of the show, and just be the guy just making things happen, go along, but just basically letting everyone be themselves. And he was one of the best in the business at doing that, and that's the style that I try to emulate.
Okay.
If I'm congested, sometimes I sound like him too.
Alrighty. Well, I think the last thing we have is, as being named the fans POV, we get a lot of questions and we do a lot of things from the fans. But when we do interviews, we usually give the guests a chance to ask the fans a question. So if there's anything pops off the top of your head, anything you'd like to ask them.
Okay. Are there any game shows that are not Double Dare or Legends of the Hidden Temple? No. Just no. That you have never seen done in a convention before that you'd like to see? Or are there any untapped things, like kids suggested I do a Yu-Gi-Oh game show? I'm like, well, that's great. I don't know Yu-Gi-Oh. I know Pokemon. So I was in a Pokemon game show. But yeah, if there's ever anything you want to see, definitely run it by me. I'll be happy to think about it, or at least tell you why I thought about it and didn't do it. So,
Okay. Well,
can I do this?
sure, go ahead.
Okay, so I have one of these two guys. This Patreon. This is the worst drawing of the P logo ever. But yeah, if you are generous, have $1 a month. I do have a Patreon that allows me to continue doing what I'm doing. Some months I only do like one convention, and you know, the bills still have to get paid. So there's that. Thank you for letting me plug. The Facebook and the YouTube are both Greggo the Game Shows, and you can see the games there.
Well, thank you very much for the interview.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and keep doing what you're doing, and we will see you guys
so.
later.
Thanks for watching. I'll keep making them.